Welcome back, everyone. So I have had this Tesla for about a month now, and I wanted to go over my first impressions, my reactions, and what it's like going from a regular gas-powered vehicle to a full electric vehicle. Someone that has never driven in one, never test drove one, never did anything, and made the switch. What makes Tesla special? What don't I like? What do I like? Let's go over it. All right, so let's start with the outside. What was my first impressions of the outside? Well, obviously you know what the car is going to look like if you look at it online and you build it to spec or you see them on the roads or whatnot. You know what it's gonna look like. But in person, when you actually start to get up here and you look at the vehicle, you know that it has like this nice little glittery coat. Everything's, I mean, you can see me, everything's brand new, so it's nice and polished and clean. I had a little bit of dirty rain, so I've got some dirtiness on here. But really, it's a car on the outside. The biggest thing people complain about are panel gap, panel gap, panel gap. So if you can see on my Tesla, that was the first thing I looked at, just to make sure that everything was within spec. And I have gone through every panel, every gap, every bit of paint to make sure everything is how it should be. And it is. I've had zero issues, zero misalignments, zero paint chips. I mean, I'm sure they had the issue. I never saw it except for videos, but the issues were present in the beginning of production, but they've been doing this for quite a long time now. And I have seen absolutely zero issues with it. So very good first impression on build quality. And other than the fit and finish of everything, the only thing you really have to get used to is, I mean, not having a front grille, and this is no longer your engine bay. It's basically a second trunk, so it's the frunk. Other than that, it's a car on the outside. Now, once you get into the vehicle is when things start to change. So of course, the flat door handles, they're doing it for aerodynamics. So that's the first new thing that you're gonna have to get used to, is opening up the door and actually getting in the vehicle. So now that we're in the vehicle and we look around, number one thing, first impression, is minimalism. There's nothing in this car. You have your steering wheel, your two stalks, which they recently got rid of in the 24, so just steering wheel, and you got a big old screen. Other than that, you have no other physical buttons. You've got your windows, and that's how you get out. That's it. Some cup holders, storage, more storage, charging. There's nothing in here. Everything is done through here, and that's one of the big things that you have to get used to, is everything is done through here. If you want to open your glove compartment, you have to go through here. If you want to do climate, you have to go through here. And for the most part, it's, once you get used to it, it's easy to find, but not always. There was only 3 things that I had to look up when I got this car, just because I could not figure out where they were. First thing was the glove compartment. You actually have to go into the settings here, and then you open your glove compartment with that button. The second one is when I very first got this car, the first time I sat in this car, it had the hazards on to let you know that, I mean, that's just how the dealership set it up. The ones with the hazards on, that one's yours, go get it and drive off. I could not figure out anywhere in here where the hazards were. There's no buttons over here where the hazards are. I'm like, how the hell do I turn the hazards off? They're up here. The one physical button that you actually do get, it's up there. Had no idea where that was until I searched online and figured out where it was. Last but not least is something that's not on these stocks, because this stock is your gear selector. You don't have another stock, so you've got your turn signal and you've got your wipers, but that's your spray for the wipers. So you have to go into the settings again, and you have to go to your wipers to turn them on or onto auto. And this one, if you hit the button once, it'll do the wipers. That was kind of hard to figure out. Good thing it wasn't raining when I first got it, but I did have to look that up, where to get it. And the caveat onto that is, if you push the button, the wipers will come on. And I was trying to figure out how to do the spray. The spray was very difficult to figure out. It says on there, push and hold. That's what the little thing is for the spray. So if you hit the button, cool, push and hold. It just keeps going. I Googled that. I could not figure it out, and I actually figured it out myself. There's a second click. So there's the soft click when you go in, and then you have to push it even harder, and it gives you your spray. So you could click in, and then click in even more, and that's when you get the little spray. And along with the gear shifter, That's also something you have to get used to. So your first impression sitting in this car is, oh, all this stuff so minimalistic, and then you want to put it in reverse, and you, oh, that's right, it's up here. So you put it in reverse, and then you pay attention. Okay, my cameras, look at my mirrors, and you turn whatnot, and then you go to put it in drive, and you're usually going around. Oh, that's right, it's up here. So something to get used to. And I would say my first impression of the turn signals, again, that was something that wasn't a quick and easy thing, because all new cars, they have a soft and a hard blinker. So basically, if you hit the blinker once, it'll be a soft hit, and it'll blink like, what, 4-ish times, and then it'll turn itself off. Tesla doesn't do that. You can either hold it down for that first click, so you can go down, but if you let go of it, it'll turn itself off. If you want to keep it on, you go down to that one and then click down again, and it'll leave it on. Now there's options to go through the screen and put it on automatically turn itself off once you actually get into the lane. There's a bunch of settings, but that was something that took me a quick second to realize while I was driving down the road. I'm like, oh, let me just go ahead and tap that, and then blinker comes on for one click, and oh, okay, I guess we're not doing that. So you got to do a real hard click to keep it on, and then turn it off manually, unless you go into the settings for the manual stop. The next big thing that I had to get used to was the lack of keys. This is a great thing. You don't have to carry bulky keys around with you. You don't have to accidentally lose your keys. If you have your phone with you, or the little credit card thing they give you, which is also a key, or any of the aftermarket ones, as long as you have it on you, like your phone, the car will know when you're nearby. It will automatically open. You can just sit down, put it in drive, and go. There's no ignition. There's no push button to start. There's no any of that. And it's so convenient to just walk up to your car, get in, put it in drive, and go. No buttons, no keys, no nothing. Very cool. So once you actually start driving, my first impressions, because I really haven't had a very nice car in a long time, it's quiet. It is super quiet. The windows are these double pane laminated windows. There's sound deadening within the car, the tires themselves, like everything is meant to make this super quiet. So when you're driving down the road, it's very quiet. When you go over bumps, it's so much softer than any of my other vehicles. It's so nice. Now, so far, I've kind of already covered this. Just the amount of technology that's in this car far, far, far surpasses any other vehicle that I've ever had or ever been in. It's absolutely nuts. But because of that, something that you have to get used to, and my first impressions on this was, wow, this is basically a requirement now. Some cars, you can go into the infotainment system and screw around a little bit. But this car, it's basically mandatory. You have to go into settings, and you have to go through each and every one of these to set up the car the way you want it and see all the different functions and all the different things that it does. And then once you're done with all those settings and you make those go away, then you've got your little toolbox here with all these other things that you can do. There's just so much in this car to memorize and figure out where it's at. It's all very beneficial. It's all very easy, but it's not always the easiest stuff to find, which brings me to my next one. I love this, and my first impression of the search function on this car is the best ever. You can open up this and you're like, oh God, I don't know where something is. You just go up to search and you type it in and it'll find it. Probably the most useful function on this vehicle is that search bar, because it'll just bring up whatever you're looking for. You're like, oh, where's my wipers? Wipers right there. So the next thing I definitely had to get used to, and I think this will go for pretty much everyone, this is your view when driving. Every single car on the road, you have your dash right here that shows you how fast you're going and all of your other settings. The Model 3 is now over here. And when you're driving, your speed's going to be right up here. First impressions is I'm still looking right here to figure out how fast I'm going. But the cool thing is they do make little aftermarket setups, so you can just put something here. It'll link into the system. It'll tell you how fast you're going, you're charging, and all that stuff. But that is something I'm still struggling with today. And speaking of troubles, something that I thought I was going to have issues with, that I absolutely do not have issues with, is right down here. These are, well, I can't call it a gas pedal, but your accelerator. Something that Tesla does is regenerative braking. So as soon as you lift off on your pedal, the car will slow itself down and regain that energy. Something I thought I would not like is the one pedal driving. I thought I really want an old school vehicle feel to where you lift off on the accelerator and you just coast. However, I started using the one pedal driving probably within 30 minutes-ish. I had it down and I was using it perfectly. I'd come to a stop right on the line, right where I was supposed to be. It's actually incredibly easy to use, and you regen your battery instead of just coasting. So that is something I didn't think was going to happen. Very, very nice, user-friendly. Now, I do have the performance version of this vehicle, but this is for any vehicle that you have, especially the performance. Everyone talks about how incredibly fast this car is, and yes, it is incredibly fast. But based on what I thought about that is when you're mashing the accelerator, just on normal streets, I thought I would be just absolutely breaking out the tires and just going super fast all the time. But the way that they have the vehicle set up is it doesn't give you 100% unless you want 100%. So I can put the accelerator down about 50%. It'll be quick, but it won't give you as much as like a gas-powered vehicle. You can really take off. But in this one, when you want to go fast, you just put it all the way down. It gives you all that power. I thought it would be more jerky. I thought it would be so much more power on the low end of the pedal, like maybe the first 50%, but it's very forgiving. Until you put that foot down and you're telling the car, I want to go, it will knock your clothes off in a very good way. Now, my first impressions of the radio. So basically the speakers on this vehicle are absolutely amazing. I have nothing bad to say about it. The bass in this car is fantastic. The speakers are crystal clear. I love it. But it's a little confusing to get started with. So if you want to listen to something, you have to go to your little radio. So you have all of your radio stations up here. It's pretty self-explanatory if you want to make one your favorite. But being able to go from this to your phone, I feel like it could be a lot easier because it took me so long to figure it out. I'm like, I'm in here. How do I connect to my phone? And I figured out that this little button up here, you can change it to all the different things. So if I want to go to Bluetooth, I just hit Bluetooth. It goes to my phone. That took me way too long to figure out. So that wasn't the best first impression when it came to user ability to navigate. But once you know where it's at, it's just a few extra steps to actually get in there. And a side note on that, also your settings. If you want to turn up the treble or the bass or the subwoofer, this thing has all of that stuff, but where do you go? That one, again, is something I had to Google because where do I go? Where's the settings? So the only way that I've actually figured out how to do this is, so you see there's no settings. I feel like there should just be a quick settings buttons up here, but you go down here, I've got the radio playing, and if you swipe over, as soon as you swipe over, you saw how this moved. If I swipe back, it goes away. But as soon as you swipe over, now it gives you the option to do the stuff up here. I think this just needs to be up here all the time, but then you go into the settings and boom, you can crank up your sub, your bass, mids, treble, whatever you need to do. You also have the immersive sound stuff. And you can also come in here and go into sources and change that and options and whatnot. That was not easy to find. And while we're talking about your connectivity and your radio and the music that you want to listen to, there is one thing that I found kind of a letdown. As advanced as this car is, it does not have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It doesn't even have a phone mirror function, so you can like bring up your phone on here. Pretty darn annoying. And I was really looking around for it because I'm like, well, all new cars have it. So it doesn't have it, but there's many ways to go around that. There's little devices you can buy for wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Like, you can get this to work very easily, but it's not a standard built-in function. When it comes to drivability of the car, honestly, it's no different from any car. The only thing that I would say is different, possibly, could be the ride quality and the sound, but it drives just like any other car. It's got a steering wheel, you turn, you have an accelerator, you have a brake pedal. Unless you have the one pedal driving on, that's the only difference. When you let off the accelerator, the car slows itself down. But if you take that off, it will drive just like any other vehicle that you have. And speaking of driving, first impressions of the comfort in the seats. Let's talk about that. Comfort is amazing. I've been in a lot of new cars. I've been in a lot of new seats. I used to sell them. These are very, very comfortable. You can sit in these for a very long time. It's a nice cushion. The bolstering, when you sit in here, I am perfectly supported in here. It's nothing crazy like a supercar where the bolstering is like just grabbing onto you. But in my opinion, it's perfect. I don't fly around when I'm taking corners, and I'm also not squeezed into my seat. Everything is set up so perfectly on my back. It's wonderful. Now, when it comes to like leaning my foot up against something when you're doing cruising, I'm kind of a tall person, so yeah, that didn't improve or not improve anything. It's still the same as any other vehicle. I kind of have to lay it up here. I wish I had more cushion so I'm not smacking my knee. Also, I do have to say on the seats, at least for the driver's side, I haven't been to a passenger, I don't even know what's over there, but at least in the driver's side, the lumbar support is nuts. If you have lower back issues or you like to have a really good lumbar in the driver's seat, oh boy, you're going to have it. I tried to max it out. I didn't even want to. It was too much. And that's not a normal thing in cars. Like, it just keeps going. It just keeps giving you that bolstering. And you can't forget the first impressions of one of the coolest things on this car. Looking up, you have got this massive, massive moonroof. Look at that thing. It's huge. It's the whole darn length of the car. But as cool as it is, it would be so much cooler if it came with a shade. That was my first thoughts when I thought of it. But honestly, you can definitely tell the tinting up here versus the zero tinting anywhere else besides the UV tint. This is super, super dark. I've had no issues with glare or heat or anything coming in here where it really, really bothered me. But I could see having a little privacy shade that you want to put up there. That would be pretty cool to have. And to be honest, if there's anything in this vehicle that is not to your liking, to be completely honest, it doesn't matter. If you look at the aftermarket for this vehicle, anything you can think of, it's available. So I got floor mats, which was the first thing I got. And one of the things that I was talking about was needing to get something for this center console well, because you see where the accelerator is, it's really, really close to the side. And so my foot started rubbing a lot against the carpet. I'm like, oh God, that's not good. I'm going to wear the carpet down over the, months and years. It's going to look horrible. Yeah, you can get, I've got like little leather pads. I guess they just Velcro onto the side. You can get that. If you want more little cubby space in here, they have those. If you want different cup holders, they have those. If you want lights anywhere in the car, they have those. If you want your screen to swivel, they have those. If you want the center thing, they have those. Like anything you can think of, the aftermarket is set. All right, guys, let's talk about the number one elephant in the room that everyone has an issue with electric cars. The range. Oh my God. How am I ever going to have a vehicle that only goes 313 plus miles for a quote unquote tank? How far are you driving to work, homie? So for me, I had that in the back of my mind, like possibly if I'm on a road trip, it might be a little annoying just having to stop more often at superchargers to get filled up. But my biggest thing when thinking about this, I want this battery to last as long as possible. Even though I've got an 8-year warranty, just like everyone else does, I want to treat this perfectly. So that means charging this car, you have to charge to 80%, and ideally you don't want to go below around 15 to 20%. So if you've got 315 or whatever miles on 100% charge, you got to take that off. So if you're charging at 80, you're sitting at about 250 miles. But you also have to knock off a few more miles if you don't want to go down in that low range past the 15 to 20%. So we're looking at even less to play with. So if you're really wanting to stay between an 20% and an 80% charge, you've only got about 200-ish miles to play with. And then you break it down even more. Okay, maybe I'm going somewhere. That means that you can only go about 100 miles somewhere and 100 miles back. That gave me range anxiety. I'm like, I want to keep this thing perfect and as long as possible, I want to hit that 80-20 area and never go in or out of that. And then I did the math, and that was my math. I've got, if I want to go somewhere, I can't go past 100 miles unless I overcharge the vehicle and then take the trip or go to a supercharger, which I don't really like to do. It costs a little bit more. Technically, it's free right now because the car's new. That gave me range anxiety. But once I started driving the vehicle and how far that I actually go, yeah, it's never going to be an issue for me unless I go on a very long road trip. So one of the coolest features of a Tesla is their Autopilot. This thing is so freaking cool. Yeah, I just can't get over it. So because this is a new vehicle, they give you a free trial just so you can play around with it and have fun with it. And I have it on. I have the full self-driving. And let me tell you, it is creepy cool. So you can drive around anywhere. It knows stoplights. It knows yield signs. It knows the painted stuff on the road. It knows when you're supposed to turn right. It knows that this isn't only a turn lane, and then this is your normal lane, and this is a passing lane. It sees all of that, and you can see it here while you're driving. It's so cool, but it's not perfect. If you're on the highway or a back road or anything like that, I've had zero issues. It's basically perfect. But once you get in town and you really start getting around some more congested areas, it gets a little finicky, but I mean, it's a beta. It's not fully completely done yet, but it's really, really nice to have. The one gripe that I have, because I know it's in a beta, I'm not going to bash on something that's not done yet. The one issue that I have is the speed limits. I'll be driving down a back road and all of a sudden it'll go, oh, speed limit's 35. And then the car just slows down. It didn't change to 35. I even bring up Google Maps on my phone. Nope, speed limit's still 55. Why did you go down to 35? It's very annoying that it just randomly changes speeds, but that's the only issue I've ever had with the Autopilot. So speaking of the maps and how this whole thing works, one thing that I really like is you can get a route on your phone. So you got Google Maps on your phone or whatever maps that you have, and you can hit share and you can just toss it onto the Tesla app and it'll throw it on here. It'll give you the route. You can just go. It's perfect. If you're doing it from here, sadly, it doesn't give you as many options as, say, Google Maps does. You can put in where you want to go, and it says, here's the route you should take. It might give you an alternative, but that's it. You don't, like Google Maps, it says, oh, you can take this route, or you can take this route. If you want to avoid highways, this is the most fuel efficient. You can do, it has so many options, where this one does have options, but it's just not as much. So not the greatest first impression of the climate control. So if you want to get into climate control, you hit that, it'll turn on to whatever you want. You can have it in auto. You can do whatever you like in here. Heated seats are fantastic. You can do front, you can do rear. You can mess around with it as much as you like. But something that Tesla doesn't have, which I ran into very quickly, was the passenger side. So if you want air blowing over here, there's no way of turning off the passenger side. You just can't turn it off. So if your passenger's over here and they're like, oh, no, thank you, I would not like to have cold air or hot air blowing in my face. Okay, I just point it up, maybe? I really don't know what to do. There is literally no option. If there is someone sitting here, it will recognize someone sitting there, and there's no way of turning this off. Why is that a thing? But with that being said, the amount of customizability that you have, I don't know if that's a word, on here is nuts. And this is like one of the greatest experiences that you can have. If you do want something on your face, as you saw before, you can move it up, you can move it down, you can split it so it's two different streams. You can do so many different things with this. You can put it in dog mode, so if you're not in the car, you can leave it running because the car there is no on off, it's just there. So you can leave it running, you can go camping with it. There's so many options in here, and it's wonderful. Also, even if you're not in the car, there's scheduling functions. So if you want to schedule, you just go into schedule. Hey, I leave for work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I want my car to be at 70 degrees, defrosted, all that stuff. By the time I get into the car, boom, yeah, we can do that. You're never going to get in a hot or cold car again. It's wonderful. All right, guys, so that's my overall first impressions, kind of a little run through. It's a very different car. So there's a lot of stuff that's different on here, and it's a Tesla. It's different than almost every other vehicle on the road, and it was the first one to do it. So there's a lot of firsts in this car and a lot of new stuff. And honestly, I would buy one again in a heartbeat. These things are amazing. They're so much fun to drive. They're quiet. They're stupid fast. It's technology based. It's like everything is in one place. It does have a learning curve though. So it's just like getting a new phone. Maybe you went to Android from Apple or vice versa. There's a bit of a learning curve. It's basically the same thing. It's a phone. It's got the same functions, but there's some things that are different. You just have to get used to it. You have to know where to find things. But once you do and you get it honed in, you're good to go. You know where to find everything. You know where the buttons are. You know what every button does. You know all the little secret functions. It becomes your car. So this is just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Like, I know everyone has their own opinion. Some people are super against things. Some people love certain functions. Some people absolutely hate certain things. Let me know what you guys think. What was your first impressions of a Tesla, either when it came out or if you have owned one? What was your first impressions? Let me know. Comment below. I'll see you in the next video.